The 2026 Formula One season is only just getting underway, but the calendar is already under serious pressure. Because of the escalating conflict in the Middle East, involving the United States, Israel and Iran, F1 has started quietly preparing backup plans. If the situation worsens, the sport could be forced to swap out its early season races in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. And that's where Imola and Portimão come back into the picture. Let's break down what's actually happening, why these races are at risk, and how F1 might reshuffle the calendar to avoid a big hole in the season. And as you watch, let me know in the comments, should F1 be racing in the Middle East while this conflict is going on? Or should the sport move events back to Europe for now? In the last few days, the situation in the Middle East has become significantly more tense. The US and Israel launched coordinated attacks on Iranian missile sites, air defenses, and command centers linked to the Islamic Revolutionary Corps. In response, Iran declared that all US and Israeli military assets in the region were legitimate targets and sent waves of missiles and drones towards American bases across the Gulf. This has affected countries like the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar, including Al Udeid Air Base, a key US command center in the region. As a result, several nations have temporarily closed their airspace, cancelled flights, and suspended large public events. In Qatar, for example, the domestic football league has been paused, and there are doubts about whether big games like the Finalissima in Lusail can safely go ahead. This is the backdrop F1 is now trying to navigate. For 2026, F1 has scheduled a double header in the Middle East: Bahrain Grand Prix on 12 April, Saudi Arabian Grand Prix the very next weekend. Both countries are now on a much higher state of alert after Iran's retaliatory attacks and the broader regional tension. For Formula One, this creates several problems at once: security, ensuring the safety of teams, staff, drivers and fans; logistics, moving freight and personnel through airspaces that might be restricted or suddenly closed; optics, racing in countries directly affected by a major regional crisis while other sports are being cancelled or postponed. The championship doesn't want a surprise 4-week gap between 29 March and 3rd May if both races suddenly have to be called off. So it's already exploring alternative scenarios. According to Racing News 365, two familiar European circuits are at the top of F1's emergency list: Imola and Portimão. Imola, Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari, hosted the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix up to 2025, already has a valid FIA Grade 1 license, has relatively recent experience of organising a modern F1 race at short notice, including through the COVID years. Portimão, Algarve International Circuit, hosted the Portuguese Grand Prix in 2020 to 2021 during the pandemic reshuffle, is slated to return to the calendar in 2027, and has the infrastructure and logistics to handle a last-minute F1 event. Both tracks are in Europe, have existing relationships with F1, and know how to get a Grand Prix weekend up and running quickly. So if Bahrain and Saudi Arabia become impossible to run, Imola and Portimão are the obvious candidates to close that early season gap. Right now, F1 officially has not changed the 2026 calendar. Bahrain and Saudi Arabia are still on the schedule in their original dates. But behind the scenes, the question is, do you wait and risk a late cancellation, or do you preemptively move to safer venues in Europe so the season stays continuous? If both Middle Eastern rounds drop out and nothing replaces them, you'd end up with season opener in Australia, then a long empty stretch, then the rest of the calendar. From a sporting, commercial and fan engagement perspective, that's a disaster. Adding Imola and/or Portimão in that slot keeps the teams racing, keeps viewers engaged, and gives F1 a way to react sensitively to the situation without simply shutting down racing completely.
This situation also revives a much bigger debate. How should F1 handle events in regions affected by serious conflict or instability? We've seen similar conversations before around races in the Middle East, events in countries with complex political situations, and how much responsibility a global sport has when it comes to safety and ethics. On one hand, F1 argues that it can be a unifying, neutral platform, bringing people together through sport. On the other hand, there are real questions about risk, perception, and what message it sends to keep racing in regions under heavy tension.
For now, nothing is official. Bahrain and Saudi Arabia remain on the 2026 calendar. The conflict in the Middle East is still developing, and F1 is quietly doing its contingency planning in the background. So I want to hear from you. Should F1 go ahead with races in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia if the regional situation stays this tense? Or would you rather see a temporary shift back to places like Imola and Portimão, even if that means another European-heavy calendar? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading your takes on F1's response to this situation.